Don't know yet. Yep, you have it. Oh yeah, I'll be around. I'll bounce around. Oh, no problem. I know you're busy. It's good to see you. Yeah, and not in April, right? Yeah, not even at Walmart. Been there lately? Yeah, there's a lot of shelf rot there, you know, like it just worms the pegs.
This one's
That part's sad. No, it isn't. I mean, I did see the Hasbro guy in there, but he was doing up Earthspark stuff. So I was like, okay.
Oh.
It's coming in here now.
How dare you love it there?
Yeah.
Good thing that you have.
Thank you. Smell right here. But it's not a little bit Transformers. It's a completely different thing.
But these videos will be there.
Yeah,
They're
it's
also
a string.
screenshot.
There's no one that content out in this channel for the string because some string is mostly over here now, but the stuff they're separate. They're a bit different. There's anime stuff. Pretty much the other ones the string has 100 supposed to name, they are being strengthened. Even though they're not audio because they're separate content. So yeah. I mean there's also a short one from yesterday now.
Yeah.
So nice. They did the strip thing.
Right.
Hello. Works.
You got the jacket back.
All right, friends. So we are here for our next panel. So please join me in welcoming Dylan G, aka NinjaTron. Big KFCon, thank you, welcome. We're going to be teaching us the hits behind Generation 2 today. Dylan, over to you, my friend.
All right, so I usually have really detailed notes, but today I don't. I'm just going to rant. So you may hear a sense of discorn or disdain for some of these characters that I'm talking about at times. It's because this is kind of a mess. This is kind of a neon splattered mess. All right, so here's what we need to know today. Generation 2, what is it? When is it? We can answer both of these questions at the same time. Why is it? This we need to speculate because there's not a whole lot of information out there. But you know, we can compare to other things that were happening at the time and sort of extrapolate why certain decisions were made. And more importantly, in our first order of business,
Yes.
what isn't Generation 2?
Yes.
All right. So, before we do that, we're going to watch this. This is the reason why we're here today, and this is specifically the reason why I'm here today.
You know, I mean, let's talk about gaming for a minute. I'm 50, so I lived through G2. You know, very much of its era, very much, it's a Redeco line. Again, these are items that have been out for a long time, sold really well already, and they were trying to get another bite at the apple. So almost no matter what they did, they were going to have problems because people were having their Transformers overloaded at that point. Anyway, like you, I think I was of the mindset that was an era of Transformers that didn't help, you know, might have helped facilitate the downward trend even. You know, I got a good question. Where does G2 actually start for everybody? What do you guys consider G2? Maybe that is something we should discuss too. Is it everything after the movie? I'm curious. Alright, so Thunderclash and that whole crew, yeah, so
No.
Pyro, Clench, those guys, I worked with the designer who did those in England, great guy. Yeah, G2 falls into that whole, that crazy 80s kind of bucket, you know, Miami Vice and all of it. I love the debate on when G2 and G1 is happening, by the way. It just shows you that my chaotic work trying to make sense of this all for everybody is difficult. We all can't agree. It's going to be a research project, NinjaTron. It's going to be a research project.
So, clearly there's confusion. What is this? This is Transformers Generation 1, isn't it? Or is it? Because back then, we didn't call it Generation 1, it was just the Transformers. The only reason why this is Generation 1 is because there was later a Generation 2. And officially, we didn't call it Transformers Generation 1 until around the 2000s or so. It was only a fan-used term before that. All right, this is Transformers Generation 1, Season 2. If you were to Google Generation 2, Transformers Generation 2, you'll get this, because that's how Google works. Please do not be confused. All right, this is the movie and Season 3 and Season 4. This is not Generation 2. It has very little to do with those characters, actually. Okay, so what is this? This is Transformers Season 5. Yeah, there's a Season 5 if you didn't know. And it has mostly just old episodes with a framing device of this kid, Tommy, who's talking to a real live-action Optimus Prime, which is a puppeteer, basically. It's gigantic, as you can see. And people conflate this with Generation 2. It is not. There are no new episodes besides the movies. The first movie from 1986 is cut up into 4 or 5 pieces and shown on television, but this is not Generation 2.
New Pretender Transformers are here. Pretenders unified to reveal a powerful robot. Look, there are evil Decepticon Pretenders too.
Transform the Pretender!
Pretenders, so certainly.
All right, is this Generation 2? No, it is not, but you can see there's a trend, right? Look at the colors. Colors are shifting in that direction if you are familiar with what Generation 2 actually does look like. Also, the heavy use of computer-generated images in the marketing. Definitely that was important for Hasbro. they wanted to go in that direction. And the way that this commercial presents itself, almost like Transformers isn't this lore about a battle between good guys and bad guys, it's this lifestyle brand now. And that's kind of the way that Generation 2 wound up in some respects. C'est quoi? Is this Generation 2? No. Thunderclash in that game, they're not Generation 2, they are from Europe, although whenever I say something's from Europe, it could also mean Australia, it could also mean New Zealand, and in this case, Canada as well, just for the 1992 year of product. But no, not Generation 2, definitely the colors are shifting in that direction even further. All right, is this Generation 2? No, we've gone too far, right? But there's this connection here because a lot of Generation 2 products wound up being reused here. Now, there's somebody on YouTube who has taken the fan subs of car robots and rewritten them and called it Transformers Generation 2. Please do not be fooled by such nonsense. Okay, so. This is
Optimus Prime is the ultimate Autobot hero, or the BCI. He's a robot in disguise. Going ballistic to destroy the Autobots and conquer mankind. He's an evil Decepticon. Or the BCI. Autobots versus evil Decepticons. The fate of the Earth hanging about. Transformers Generation 2. Coming soon from Marvel Comics.
All right, hopefully you saw the progression there to this. Okay, so that was Transformers Generation 2. That was a preview that was for the brand in general, using the same trick they did in the 80s to advertise the Marvel Comics as a way of advertising the entire brand, including the toys, with animation all the way through. So, Generation 2 is, in a nutshell, the Transformers product lines released in 93, 94, and 95. And that's it. There are 52 episodes of the cartoon. It was really just the G1 episodes with extra computer nonsense attached via the cybernetic space tube. So if you missed it, you didn't really miss much. But if you missed watching it on TV back then, because it was not around for a while, hey, you got something to watch again. So good for you. There was a comic book series, I can't really get into too much because there's not enough time, but it does exist and it's pretty cool. There was other stuff, like many other brands would have, stuff like coloring books and other merchandise. So we'll take a look at some of those things. And well, this speaks for itself, right? Alright, so what is Generation 2 actually made out of? Mostly it is, at the beginning, reused figures from the 80s, but in different colors. Then it shifted towards brand new figures, often with more advanced articulation. So that was kind of where that whole thing came from, really. Is, these figures from Generation 2 started to shift towards more posable figures. Oh, I'm sorry, this was mistake here. Yeah, so Generation 2 is kind of infamous for its use of color and the color schemes. This is interesting. The missile launchers and other plane gimmicks, if you want to call it that, is a bigger deal in Generation 2 than it was in Generation 1. A lot of Generation 1 figures had their playability features like launching missiles removed when they were moved over from Japan into the Hasbro markets. Okay, so the stuff that happened in Europe has been the bane of my existence for the past several hours, and I will try to make sense of it, but I don't have any notes, so it's going off the top of my head, and Who knows, maybe I got something wrong. And in fact, not everything that happened in Europe happened everywhere in Europe. There's probably some toys that didn't hit everywhere, like certain Megatrons maybe didn't go to Germany because Germany. And there's a lot of stuff that was unreleased. We'll look at some of it, but there's a lot. Some of it has been referenced recently. All right, so here are some pictures of the 1990s. Who else had shorts like that kid? Yeah, so this is what was going on at the time. Hopefully, by looking at this, you will start to understand more of why certain decisions were made as to why Generation 2 is the way it is. So we're starting with 93. We're going to look at all the commercials.
Powerful jets that transform and defend with Decepticon robots. Ramjet and Starscream with missile launchers and mighty power packs. But first, they'll head up battle the heroic robots. Inferno, Jazz, and Sideway. There. Jazz strikes back with a robot-tripping rocket launcher and Inferno's water cannon and rain and pain. Transformers Generation 2 armored cars Decepticon 15 soldiers.
So you see, these are just Generation 1 figures in different colors, oftentimes radically different colors, and with the additions of missile launchers or water squirters or other stuff. There were also mini box, and that's not Cliff Joker there, that's actually Hubcap, you know, and they have chrome on them, so good luck finding a mini one today.
Transforming from big-winged to powerful robots, each the greatest Autobot warrior of them all. With a hidden battle platform, twin rocket launchers for double the damage, and a lightning sound power for real battle action. And when Optimus talks, the Decepticons no longer recover. Transformers Generation 2, Optimus Prime is all you see here.
Nice narration there by one of our guests this weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, so Optimus Prime got a re-release with basically almost the same stuff, right? But an extra sound making pack and 2 big missile launchers. Otherwise, it was mostly the same.
Decepticon vehicles built to destroy the planet Earth. More than meets the eye, they're robots in disguise. And the Constructicons combine to form the dreaded Devastator for really big destruction. But the Constructicons on Earth are big trouble. The heroic Dinobots, Snarl, Slag, and Grimlock. These massive monsters transform into mighty robots that blast those Decepticons into extinction. Transformers Generation 2, Dinobots and Constructicons each sold separately.
Okay, so they were big on the Dinobots here. I have a feeling that Hasbro, I don't know if the timing works out, but I have a feeling that Hasbro caught wind of Power Rangers and looked at the Dinobots and the Constructicons and said, we have this at home. And that's why we have these here. So Dinobots were released in 3 different ways. We have something pretty close to the original, and then a more colorful version with Grimlock in blue and the other 2 in red and green. And then there was a 3rd release where the red one and the green one were swapped, and Grimlock was turquoise. And then we have yellow Devastator. This is different than the other yellow Devastator, or the other yellow Constructicons, I should say, who can't turn into Devastator that were released in Europe. It's a different shade of purple, even. Okay, and then there's also orange Constructicons. For some reason, these are speculated to have been a store exclusive, but they were available at more than one store, so nobody's really sure what happened there. But yeah, these orange ones came out probably just to refresh things, which did happen sometimes in this line.
Planet Cybertron got mysterious new color change Transformers. What are they? I don't know. It's color change Jet Store. Drenched, Deluge, and robots transform from red roadsters to awesome robots. Arm them with pump action aqua blasters. Blast them with hot water and find out whose side they're on.
Show your true colors, Deluge! Decepticon! Transformers!
Transformers Generation 2 color change cartridge sold separately.
Alright, I should probably mention those faction symbols are different, right? People have noticed that by now. So here's the thing with these guys. These are new to us. in this case. These are from '93, but in Europe, '93 was not the first year of Generation 2. It was the last year of Generation 1. Or do you really even want to call it that? I don't really know. But yeah, in Europe, Transformers just kept on chugging along, and these were released in '93, but they weren't released as Generation 2 product because Generation 2 hadn't started yet. So they also made their way across the pond into the Hasbro North American markets. And you can see, water squirters and more playability, and it really needs to be mentioned. We have to talk about this guy. There is a Transformers character named GoBots.
Yes.
And you know what GoBots are, you can understand why that's kind of a big deal. So basically, Hasbro had purchased Tonka a few years earlier, and this was them staking claim to that name, so I guess nobody else could take it and start making GoBots and compete with Transformers. So yeah, there's a Transformers named GoBots, and it gets even worse later.
Transforming from battle tank to deadly robot with power unleashed and rocket load supersonic cannonball. Megatron can blast prime into spare parts. Listen to the voice of doom.
All right, probably the most iconic piece of Generation 2 is Megatron. And yeah, Megatron, not a gun. He's a tank. Get over it. Yeah. So that green and purple color scheme with camouflage is just so iconic now. And in fact, has been referenced many times since. Now, at the very top, you see that tiny little green tank, right? So those are exclusive pieces from BotCon in 2000 in Japan. There was a BotCon in Japan in the year 2000. This is quite possibly the first reference to Generation 2 after the fact. And it was only a few years after it had ended. But what's interesting is that figure was not released in Japan. But of course, this is BotCon, so I'm pretty sure everybody there would know what it is. So those are not Transformers. Those are Choro Q figures, penny racers, if you want to call them. Yeah, also made by Takara, but they did a Transformers color scheme. And you can see Generation 2 Megatron has been referenced many, many times since then, including these Reese's figures. And, well, this is from my own collection. So that's it for '93. Now we're on to '94. Okay. So these guys, what was the deal with them again? Okay, so these were released in '93 in Europe and made their way into North American markets in '94 as Generation 2 characters now. And then were released again in Europe under Generation 2 packaging. Now when they were in North American markets, some of them had different names and a few different colors. And then when it went back and became Generation 2 in Europe, they had the same names as they had before. So who are they and what do you call them? I don't know. They are a group of 4 cars, accelerators, and 4 planes, which are, what are they, Scorchers or something? Sky Scorchers? Something like that, I don't remember. We can keep it all straight. All right, so I think that's everything I need to say about the game.
But the evil Megatron is Megatron. Megatron transforms from combat tank into evil combat robots. Transform. Transformers Generation 2 combat Optimus Prime in combat
probably his last time as Optimus Prime for quite some time. So these figures are pretty cool. They're quite posable now. And this is a good example of multiple characters getting different versions throughout the same line, which didn't really happen very often before. Now, here's the weird thing about this, thanks to Europe and those markets, is I guess Hasbro in Europe thought they already had an Optimus Prime, they didn't need a new one, they already had Megatron. So instead, they gave them different names, Sure Shot and Arch Force, and they took away the sticker. So that Megatron Rules sticker that you see there on Megatron is not on the European version because that's not Megatron, even though he otherwise looks just like Megatron. Wow, great idea, guys.
I think there's still a sticker, it just doesn't have one.
Yeah, it's something else.
I've got one at home, I can check that.
So then there's these. These are unreleased, and this is from later, but I want to talk about that now. So these never came out. Now, it's confusing as to whether these guys are heroes, combat, or combat heroes. Right? And which names are meant to go with which set. But here we have General Optimus Prime with like his military gimmicks on the front of his like lapels there. That's hilarious to me, so I just cracked up looking at that. These figures have been actually referenced, even though they were never released in more recent Transformers lines. Okay, so I just have to make sure that everybody is warned about this.
Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have added subtitles, but now you're going to have to listen to it over and over again. Yeah.
Play it again.
No,
Go.
well, there's plenty more, so don't worry. So, we have these guys, rotors and laser rods, so more playable gimmicks, pretty affordable too. Okay, so this is funny. Think back to what I said about playable features in Generation 1 and how now in Generation 2 this is a bigger deal. All these launching missiles. So at the very first BotCon in 1994, this was shown off by some Hasbro representatives who were doing presentation. And people freaked out about how many awesome missiles this thing could shoot. And somebody actually yelled, "Are you taking pre-orders?" So back then, that was hilarious, because who would ever pre-order a toy? But little did anybody know at the time. So the computer graphics in these specific commercials, the ones with the rap and that other one with the combat heroes, they were done by this company, not just another friggin' computer graphics company. And they really loved working on Transformers. They especially loved Dreadwing, who kind of became a mascot for them for a while. So here's Dreadwing with some of the other brands they work with. And they're still in operation. You can check out their website. Alright, so probably the most infamous pieces of Generation 2 merchandise. The aerial bots, don't touch the gold one. We have one today. In fact, I'll even look at it. And Bruticus. So, you know, like you can look at these. They're military vehicles. They're meant to be realistic, and they're this color. And you know, you think this is ridiculous. But here's the thing: at that same presentation at BotCon in 1994, Hasbro representatives said that they sold a lot of Combaticons. It was probably their best-selling item in all of Generation 2. So there you go.
Hi, I'm John Warden, a design manager here at Hasbro, and I'm here to talk to you today about the G2 Bruticus Series Pack. This series pack is the only place where you can get all 6 Combaticons decked out in the G2 colors in a single box, and you can put them together to form the awesome G2 Bruticus Combiner. All these colors are inspired by the toys from the 1990s. We went to great lengths to capture the essence of G2. You can see these guys have camouflage that is really unique to the G2 set. One of the crown jewels of this set is Decepticon Shockwave, who comes in a completely unique Action Master colorway. And this is the first time we've done it since the 90s. And the only place you can get it is within the G2 Series Pack Bruticus. G2 Bruticus exemplifies everything that's cool about the Generation 2 universe. He's got bright colors, aggressive styling, and it's going to be really, really cool for fans to have an opportunity to hold this thing in their hands.
So a good example of Generation 2 being referenced in modern times. This is from my own collection. You can see I'm a very big fan. And the Fall of Cybertron video game had Combaticons in it, and there was a DLC you can change them into the Generation 2 colors. Alright, Cyberjets, I think those are actually the next year, so we'll skip that. Yeah, so Menasor and Defensor, Stunticons, and Protectobots were not released, but they were planned. And Menasor has been referenced a couple times. Not so with the Protectobots yet. Hotspot out of the Protectobots is probably the rarest piece of all the Generation 2 items that are out in the wild. There are packaged samples of a lot of this stuff, but there's only 2 known examples of Hotspot in the world, and it's not in package. Okay, so at BotCon in 1994, the only way to get even one of the Stunticons was through that convention. And yeah, you could get Breakdown. So Breakdown has a little bit of notoriety just for that reason. All right, so we're in 95. Okay, so Cyberjets, really realistic plane models, but they turn into police, and I don't like. Why don't you paint a jet with like tiger stripes? Looks cool. Good enough. Yeah, very posable and affordable. I should mention that a lot of Generation 2 products were packaged in like these really difficult clamshells that electronics used to be packaged in like the early 2000s. Same kind of deal. Oh, those are just awful.
Il se passe quelque chose d'incroyable chez Turbo Transpo. Ces 6 modèles qui se transforment en robots. Tu achètes le Turbo Transpo et on t'offre le 3e en cadeau. Appelle vite au 36 65 11 01.
Alright, so there are not a lot of commercials for this year. This was a smaller year. It was meant to be a smaller line of figures because of budget constraints. But we were promised in 94 that even though 95 was going to be a smaller year, 96 would be really big. And yes, it was true, but not for the reasons they were thinking. So yeah, I go to France to get this commercial, and it is for GoBots. Hey, didn't we just talk about GoBots? Well, this is different GoBots. Not only is there a Transformers character named GoBots, there's a segment of Transformers called GoBots, and these are basically think of them like Hot Wheels, but they can transform into robots. And there were quite a few of these in lots of different colors, and there were a number of them you can see on the right that were not released. These figures were reused in Robots in Sky, or car robots, and some of the unreleased ones were also used there too. Not all of them though. You can see this big truck. That was basically a playset that would be like a ramp for the GoBots to go on. So the robot that it would come with was named Grease Pit, and I think that the truck itself was Road Rig or something like that. So it would transform into a playset for the smaller cars. So then you have your laser cycles, and this is the best contribution to Generation 2 that was made in Europe because they were ninjas in Europe. How much ninja power do you think?
100. At least
100 ninja power? Alright.
Transformers, they take on a whole new look with their color-coded packaging.
So this is from Toy Fair in '95. I don't really want to talk about any of this stuff, so I'll let this guy do it for me.
And the all-new, most mind-blowing, laser-slashing, robot-bashing product line ever, the GoBots. These miniature metal-punching machines have high-speed racing axles. All 12 of these super cool racers transformed to robot and back are the lowest priced Transformers ever. The Cyberjets, super sonic.
People don't usually get to see this. So these are presentations that are made for physical
Racers transformed to
press,
robots and back are
or
the
buyers,
lowest priced
basically
Transformers
stores.
ever. Cyberjets.
Some of these were not released.
Fast attack fighters
These are about to see here.
fire and missile launcher. All 6 transformed to robot and back in 6 different sky-high styles, burning up the roads with no respect for public safety and laser cycles. Letting fast racer bikes go to
Those are not released.
they have light up TIs and we included transforming the robot and they have a light up saber sword for robot ripping action. The all-new auto rollers. These super tough titans roll into battle, then just flip the switch and they transform as they enter the fight. All 4 of
There were
these
two others that were not released, so we went to the
things on
Get off, working on this part. There was just
in all new colors for Optimus Prime and the evil Megatron. These vehicles transform into a mighty robot with air-powered rockets. So ATV returns, new colors, new packaging as the evil triple changer Megatron.
Now, it was released, but in very small quantities.
Each of these vehicles has transformed into a mighty Decepticon robot. Yes, with glow-in-the-dark missiles with night fighting missions can't be avoided.
We really want to get to one from each for a second. It's almost exactly the same.
It features working.
This guy will talk about it.
Laser disc mounted on top of the trailer. The kid transforms into your kid's most favorite robot hero with a light-up laser sword. And one of the most dangerous of situations, press the button on the back of Optimus Prime. Now pop Autobot headquarters. It's heavily armored with a 5-shot missile launcher, multi-shot disc launcher, and an air-powered rocket launcher. Also a cannon that lights up the hands of Optimus Prime.
Alright, impressive stuff. So here we got a catalog from '95, because I don't want to do a separate page for every one of these. But we will talk about Optimus Prime. So the laser Optimus Prime, probably the most iconic piece of Generation 2 from the Autobot side, is referenced a lot. So that's from my own collection. Going back to this one here. For a very long time, for a number of years, this was probably considered to be the best Transformer ever made. And you can see how playable it is, and it's very posable as well. It still holds up today, I think. Okay, here's some artwork that was used in the catalogs, mainly for Europe. I don't know why it's this color, but it's pretty rad. Okay. Alright, so Pyro and Clench. We'll talk about these guys here. So this is 93, but again, this is before Generation 2 in Europe. These guys were released. So are Pyro and Clench Generation 2? No. but Spark and Colossus are. And who are they? They are Pyro and Clench. That's the end of that sentence. They're just in different packages. Why did they release them again with different names? I don't know. They did this a lot in Europe. They would just release the same thing again from 93 to 94 in Generation 2 packaging this time. But in this case, they gave them different names. I don't know why. Alright, so we also have these guys, the Sparkle Bots. They're all Sparkle Bots, even the villains. I want to bite one of these. I wonder what they taste. Look like candy. Alright, and then we have the Power Masters. And no, they're not the Power Masters from G1. This is just another usage of the word Power Masters from Transformers history, but in a completely different way. And they suck, so who cares? But you move them around and they kind of transform. Okay, so I found a video about Transformers history in Japan. Let's see how Generation 2 fits in to Japanese Transformers lore. This is a video that goes through all the different features of Transformers from the 30th anniversary. Starting with Convoy, Optimus Prime, in 1985 is when Generation 1 started in Japan. And then we can fast forward all this. Okay, so next is this guy. Okay, not Generation 2 yet. So 1990. Alright, and here it comes. Here it comes.
Yeah, go for it.
Wait a minute! Are we missing something there? Okay, so this is not entirely correct because Generation 2 did come out in Japan in 1995, mostly focusing on the new figures, none of the re-release figures that were from the early days of Generation 2 in North America, but the new ones that had more posable features. And here it is, some video of the Tokyo Toy Fair, or is it the Tokyo Toy Show? One of those. In 1995. So you can see the whole range of products that is on offer. This was pretty small. It was not, oh, these guys, they were not released like that actually. That never happened. Those Cyber Jets with the additional parts. So nobody's really sure what the deal is with those. Okay. Here's a commercial from Japan. So maybe we think they're loud and silly, but I bet in Japan it's not really rad. So it wasn't a big hit, but it was there. No cartoon or anything, but there were story pages and manga, some comics packed in. Interesting storyline that sees Optimus Prime using a reconfiguration matrix to rebuild himself into the Laser Optimus Prime after his hero Optimus Prime body gets destroyed. There you can see that. So pretty cool stuff. The illustrations are kind of familiar because it seemed like the artist was going after the same style as the Marvel comic that had already run. Okay, so Laser Optimus Prime got a reissue in 2006, and thanks to eHobby, we got a new Generation 2 character, Ultra Magnus, which was a recolor of the Laser Optimus Prime. And actually the Laser Optimus Prime is a little bit different than the original because it has different stickers and it has chrome on the windows there. Okay, so unreleased stuff. I'm just going to speed through this as quickly as I can. All right, so it seemed that after a while, Hasbro figured that they weren't going to do any more of the Generation 1 reissues with the Generation 2 color schemes, but many of them were planned. So we have 2 more Dinobots, and we have these 2 guys that were referenced recently in the Toxitron collection. Toxitron is not a Generation 2 character, but I like to think that mold comes with a matrix, right? It's like an orange matrix. I like to think that's a garbage matrix from the planet of junk that Toxitron uses to bring life to concepts that were thrown away long ago.
Human core, it's just pure.
All right, we've got some of the jets. I think, yeah, at least 2 of these guys were recently, maybe just the one in the middle was recently referenced again. Okay, so we got a Grimlock to go with those other 2 Dinobots. Some interesting art here. It's really weird and cool that this artwork would be made at this level, but it would not necessarily be used for anything because they never released that toy. Okay, speaking of unreleased things, there was going to be a video game for Super Nintendo, but it never came out. It was going to be developed by Argonaut, who is the developer of Star Fox, the original Star Fox, and the developer of the Super Effects chip that was in every Star Fox cartridge. So, yeah, there was going to be a Generation 2 Transformers video game that used that same style of 3D graphics, but it was not released. There's another robot video game that Argonaut developed at around that same time. People speculated for a long time that video game, what was it called again? Vortex or something like that? Was that it? Okay. So people thought Vortex was just, they took the Generation 2 Transformers game and gave it a new coat of paint so they could make it its own unique property and get something out of it. But no, that's not the case. There were 2 robot games being developed at the same time, and only one of them got released, and it was not Transformers. Okay, speaking of unreleased, this is from a line of 2 packs from Generations that was going to come out. And here you see the Generation Sideswipe in G2 colors. So this did kind of get released, but only at BotCon through their custom thing. And so you had to build it and paint it yourself. And if you want to do that, good for you. But if you want that today, then you don't have it. So sorry. Okay, so we're into the stuff now. This is great. We've got enough time to get through all the stuff.
From the planet Cybertron,
Here's the TV show.
the adventures of Transformers Weekdays, get inside.
This is what it was like the whole time.
By planning weekend television transformed into a high-tech world of robot warriors who may and be transformed. Cybertron you, Transformers Generation 2 this year.
Transformers, weekday morning today on Fox 29.
Yeah, Gary Chalk is a narrator there. He was the narrator on some of those commercials with the rap, or not the narrator, but the voices on the characters. All right, so here we got stuff. We've got loot bags and stamps and lock bag. You can punch Optimus Prime as much as you want. We got this video game from Tiger. This was reissued recently, along with an X-Men game, and I think the other one was Little Mermaid, maybe. Yeah, so you can buy this again pretty easily now. Watches. So, yeah, Ultra Magnus and Galvatron were released in Generation 2 back then, as long as you were okay with wearing them on your wrist. These were originally from G1 in Japan only, so Generation 2 was the only way to get these watches. The Megatron is pretty sharp. I would definitely wear that today. Coloring books. You can color Megatron any way you want, as long as it's green and purple. All right, there was a kids' meal. This one says Walmart, and this one says Dairy Queen. I guess it's the same product. Or was that something else? I don't remember. So, yeah, that thing that is from Dairy Queen, that's hideous. So, we have a comic. Comic has really interesting artwork with lots of weird guns and tubes going all over the place, but it's cool. So G-Axis comes from the comic book. He was not a toy character until just recently. Here are all the G-Axis figures they have released thus far, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why 2 of them are orange, but somebody thought that was a good idea, so that's what we got. There was also a UK comic book. Now it seems to me like the UK comic book was made to kind of remove a lot of the references to G.I. Joe from the UK version because G.I. Joe was not a big hit. So G.I. Joe played heavily into the storyline in the comic book in the US Marvel Comics because Cobra rebuilt Megatron into his cool tank mode. But that was exercised from the UK version, and so they had some of their own unique pages of artwork. And actually, this artwork looks pretty interesting too in its own right. Okay, so we have Masterpiece Sideswipe from Generation 2. So recolor of the standard Masterpiece Sideswipe, but it has that snarling comic book style head. So Sideswipe is a pretty iconic piece from Generation 2 and gets some reference here and there. Now this shirt is a more recent product. I mean, it's probably 20 years old by now, but still, at the time, it was more of a nostalgia product. It's just interesting that this is not just Optimus Prime. This is specifically Generation 2 Optimus Prime. Okay, so BotCon, who was here at BotCon? So some people were here, okay. So here's the thing about the set that was available to celebrate Generation 2 at BotCon in 2010. Most of these characters aren't really Generation 2. Some of them are like from the weird European stuff that happened. So this is probably the source of a lot of confusion over which characters are Generation 2 and which are not, because they kind of went into business for themselves and choosing which characters to use. And I'm not complaining because these look cool, but still, Pyro Clench, not Generation 2. Maybe they're close enough, we can let it slide. Okay, so remember Transformers Battle Tactics on your phone? Because I sure don't.
I do.
Alright, that was a joke.
It disappeared. The end.
So there was a Generation 2 event with this game.
Yeah.
Kind of like an RPG style turn-based kind of thing. And so some Generation 2 characters, or versions of characters rather, would show up. Okay, want to see something really weird? South Korean Transformers Generation 2. These are probably bootlegs. Not sure what they are. I think they're model kits or something. But there's a commercial. Provided with no context.
Oh my god.
These need to go somewhere.
It still has better colors than toys.
Okay, yeah. It's like pencil cases and watches and all kinds of weird stuff. So that's all I really wanted to say about Transformers Generation 2. But before I wrap up, I want to pay tribute to our friend Bryce. I used a lot of Bryce's pictures in my presentations over the years. A couple of years ago, I asked him if it would be okay for me to use some of his pictures. And he was a really good dude. I saw him at a concert maybe 2 months before he passed away. And he said some really nice things about me, and he told me that the stickers that he bought for me were all over his house. So I want to remember him and mention that we're thinking about him this weekend. And if you want some of my stickers, here you go. This is what I have available. They're 2 for $5. And I have some Generation 2 stickers especially available. So come on and get them after the show. And that's about all, except there's time, I think, for one more thing. I showed this last year at my panel. It's the Italian version of the Generation 2 theme song. This was originally composed for the Italian version of the anime City Hunter, until somebody realized that City Hunter is probably not appropriate for children, so that tune got reconfigured to be about Transformers. conversation's kind of weird. And I think it has to do with some of the lyrics from City Hunter being stated being there in the end. Yay, we're done. All right. And before we wrap up, people who know about this stuff, did I get it right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did pretty good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, NinjaTron friends. All right, thank you guys so much. Keep in mind, dealer room and artist alley are closing at 4 o'clock today. We have one more piece left to silent auction on. That's the Optimus Prime display piece at the back. And join us in a very few minutes as we start our next panel with our very own Goober about traveling